Well, there's another reply video on the general subject of morality and its source, objective or subjective. Goat commented again, basically said, so you agree that there's no objective source of morality, God. And, that's not... God really isn't the issue. I mean, morality can be defined by other things besides a God. We can describe morality. That's what we attempt to do, is describe the truth. And my claim is that there is an objective moral truth. It exists out there. Yeah, we can't see it precisely, exactly. We can't see it enough to say much, absolutely. We can say some things, absolutely, as I have said. We can absolutely, I think, say with certainty that suffering is a bad, evil, nasty thing. When it has no purpose, when it accomplishes nothing, when it is of an unnecessary nature. And anything that would cause unnecessary suffering, or avoidable suffering, or preventable suffering, would be morally wrong. There's an equation, as I've said, and I knew when I did the other video, because I didn't get to this part of the, this is really that third prong I was talking about. Because the other morality that we deal with is the practical morality, the morality where we come up with our best guesstimate at what that absolute objective truth is. And but let's not fool ourselves into thinking it is just a construct, just a bit of artificial social engineering, whatever you wish to call it. I mean, it goes further than having the limited purpose of creating civilization. That's its intent. Intent would be the wrong word, because the first and primary intent is to create a survivable social environment. But it attempts to mimic the absolute truth. And we can only, like I said, we can't know that for certain. We can only know pieces of that truth, just as we can only know pieces of the truth of our evolutionary history. But there are enough pieces for us to draw certain conclusions rather conclusively. And so I just wanted to make it clear that no, I don't call it God. I don't say there is a creator out there making the judgment. All I'm saying is that the judgment is a truth. It's not made by an entity. It is a truth. That's what that's what a judgment is. It is an attempt to describe a reality. And there is a reality out there to be described in terms of our impact. And, in a sense where we are the ones who must judge behavior, where we must make things accountable and define them for their behavior. Look, I mean, theoretically, there's no point in punishing a murderer, because, if there was no deterrent effect, because his crime, he has punished himself in a sense, because he has harmed an equal. The do unto others as others you'd have others do unto you works in the inverse, in the sense that if you do something harmful to your equal, you are essentially doing it to yourself. We're all, consciousness is we are all responsible for it. There's no getting around our accountability for all of it. We can't just say, I'm only responsible for the consciousness I possess, and that all other consciousness is irrelevant Because it isn't. It's all relevant. It's all just as relevant. If I had to allocate a broken leg today, I had to give one to somebody. Objectively, the truth would say that there is no, generally speaking, reason not to give the broken leg to myself versus somebody else. It is the same event, whether I experience it or somebody else experiences it. Obviously, we can construct more complicated circumstances that would say, okay, it's better for one person to have it than person B because person B already has enough problems or some other bullshit. That's not my problem. I'm not playing a mind game here. I'm just saying that let's just acknowledge that morality is both, that the word has these dual meanings or dual uses, and one is the application of a judgment in a society that needs structure, and one of it is an ultimate judgment. And I would argue that the social structure intends to mimic the ultimate judgment that is out there. And if you don't want to call it God, I don't want to call it God either. But you're the one narrowing it to say that there's no such thing as meaning unless God imposes it. And there is goddamn meaning. Meaning is a reality. You don't need a God to create meaning or purpose for us to have meaning and purpose. And our purpose is to have an effect in the world that is productive. If we are destructive, we are acting, I don't care, you don't want to call it immoral. Well, to me, it's immoral. It's illogical, it's stupid, it's foolish, it's inefficient, it's destructive is the key word there. I mean, that's really what a morality intends to do, is prevent destruction, damage, harm, and that has a reality. There's no escaping that. So I'm going to continue to argue that there is an objective morality. We can't precisely define it yet. Okay? We don't have the knowledge base to do that. We can't look at every circumstance and declare it productive or destructive. We can only go by the tendencies. Okay? If there's a high probability that it is destructive, then we are allowed to make the judgment, is my argument. We don't have to wait for conclusive proof before we make the judgment, because as a practical matter, we have to make these judgments. And so it really doesn't matter whether we have the absolute evidence. My point is that we need, as a practical matter, to essentially live the absolute. It has to be absolute law that you do not kill other people, because if we don't obey that law, chaos ensues, everybody's dead, the end. So there's no point in describing it as anything other than an objective truth, because that's what it intends to mimic, is the objective truth. And the objective truth is you can't usually kill somebody without doing them harm, and harm is the moral crime. The imposition of suffering is the moral crime. The extenuation of suffering is the moral crime. It does get a little complicated when you talk about life and death, just because there's where I would argue that there is this uncertainty in terms of what we really need. That's where, when you get into these issues of euthanasia or suicide or, like I say, even killing, it's not the act of killing is a harm, but beyond that harm, if it imposes no harm, if the killing is instantaneous and there's no relatives to grieve and no other negative impact of the person's non-existence anymore, morally or from the universe's perspective, it may not be a horrific crime, because the universe isn't involved in wondering and admiring every single snowflake. I mean, it appreciates uniqueness, but it does not necessarily appreciate abundance. And it is the quality rather than the quantity of the life that is important from that objective standard. It is what living things are experiencing that matter, not the raw number of living things crawling around. So anyway, I think it's an important distinction. I'm sorry about the having to go over and over and over this stuff, but I don't want to be misunderstood to be suggesting that I don't believe there is an objective truth regarding morality, regarding ethics, regarding right and wrong. I believe it is out there. We just have a hard time seeing it with our limited perception.